I think that Jen speaks her mind and she doesn't let anybody control and manipulate her. I don't think he likes someone who's so strong and so strong-willed and so outspoken with their opinion. He needs a yes person, a yes, 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 you're right. Let me bow down a little bit and kiss your feet. I think that would not be Jen or that kind of.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Let's get straight into it. This Sunday isn't just another episode. It's the explosive fourth part of the season 20 tell-all. And it feels like the entire, crumbling foundation of the Brown family is finally being put on full display. If you thought the season felt disjointed, like it was skimming the surface of a much deeper story, you're not alone. This tell-all has followed that same chaotic pattern, picking random threads and leaving us to piece together the real narrative. And that real narrative, the one we've all sensed for years, is all about control, information, and who gets to be the keeper of the family's secrets. We've just learned that the show is confirmed for at least a season 21, but filming has been sporadic at best. According to reports, even the family doesn't know what the future holds. Janelle, for instance, is said to be caught in a painful tug-of-war, wanting to move on with her life and be free from the cameras, but also facing the terrifying reality that this show is her primary lifeline. Without it, the financial safety net vanishes. It's a brutal position to be in, and it tells us everything about why these final seasons feel so strained. The polygamous structure that was the show's entire premise is gone. What we're watching now isn't a family building something together. It's the messy, painful aftermath of its collapse, and TLC is essentially filming the cleanup. But this brings us to the core of what this finale is exposing. When the original dream falls apart, what's left? In the Brown family, what was left was a desperate battle for position, for favor, and for survival within the ruins. And that battle was fought with a single, powerful weapon: information. Who knew what? Who told who? And who could use a secret as leverage? This brings us directly to the central drama of this week's episode, and it's a moment years in the making. A newly released clip, though frustratingly hard to find, shows the long-simmering tension between Mary and Robyn finally boiling over, specifically about the catfishing scandal. For the first time, we see Robyn put directly on the spot about her involvement. The host, Suki, asks Robyn a devastatingly simple question. After everything that's happened, you don't feel that Mary has any grounds to distrust you? Robyn's response is immediate and absolute. I do not. I absolutely do not. I've had Mary's back. Let's pause here. This is the moment. This defensiveness is the key to unlocking everything. Because in that same clip, Robyn describes her actions during that time in a way that, ironically, confirms Mary's deepest suspicions. Robyn says she was watching Mary have online conversations about flowers and texting and music and flirting, and that her reaction was to immediately go to Kody. Get your butt over there. Figure this out with her, is what she claims she told him. She frames it as concern. But from Mary's perspective, this was the ultimate betrayal. Robyn, a sister wife, witnessing her in a moment of profound vulnerability and isolation, and instead of coming to her, she ran to the one person Mary was emotionally disconnected from, Kody. Robyn even admits, I was being open with both of them. I was talking to both of them, meaning both Mary and the catfish. She acknowledges she knew Mary was being taken advantage of. So, she wasn't telling Kody about an affair. She was telling him his legal wife was being emotionally manipulated online. She positioned herself not as Mary's confidant, but as Kody's informant on Mary's distress. This is the critical distinction. In a healthy dynamic, a friend would intervene directly. In this dynamic, Robyn reported the situation upward to the patriarch. She became the channel of information, and in doing so, she controlled the narrative. This isn't just about one incident. This is the blueprint for how power was maintained in this family. Kody, especially as the family grew and his control became more logistical than emotional, could not be everywhere at once. His ability to dominate relied entirely on having allies within the wives' ranks, wives who would feed him information about what was really happening when he wasn't in the room. This created a system where loyalty wasn't shown through love or support, but through intelligence gathering. Information became the family currency, and tattling was the transaction that proved your allegiance. Think about the timing of the catfishing. It happened right after Mary's legal divorce from Kody, which was done to marry Robyn. Mary was an empty nester, feeling ostracized and adrift within the family she helped build. She was the perfect target for a catfish because she was desperately lonely. And into that vulnerability stepped not just a predatory stranger, but also a sister wife who chose to report her struggles to the central authority rather than shield her. Robyn, whether she admits it or not, played a role in that ecosystem of control. By going to Kody, she amplified Mary's crime and solidified her own position as the wife most aligned with Kody's need for total awareness and thus total control. This dynamic of the tattletale isn't unique to Robyn, though she may have perfected it. The previews for this finale reveal another staggering admission. Janelle also served as Kody's informant. In a clip, Janelle confesses that she told Kody about a private conversation involving their friend Jen. Jen, who has always been a vocal advocate for the wives' independence, allegedly advised Mary to secure her finances. Janelle tells Suki, "You told Kody what was said between you and Jen." "Yeah, I must have. Let's unpack the layers here." First, a friend, Jen, gives Mary pragmatic, real-world advice about financial independence. Advice that, by the way, Christine has said Janelle herself gave to her. Second, Janelle hears this advice. Third, instead of dismissing it or discussing it with Mary, Janelle's immediate move is to report it to Kody. And fourth, this reporting allegedly caused Kody to label Jen as not good for Mary, effectively driving a wedge between Mary and an outside friend who represented a worldview beyond the family's insular control. This pattern is devastating. It shows a family culture where private conversations between women aren't sacred. They are potential commodities to be traded for favor. Janelle, often seen as the logical, independent wife, was participating in this same system. By telling Kody, she was performing loyalty. She was showing him, "I am on your team. I hear things that threaten your control, and I bring them to you." This brings us to a crucial point about the family's internal narrative. For years, Mary has been painted as the difficult wife, the scapegoat. Stories have swirled. Accusations have been made. But what if that difficult label was itself a tool of control? A source with connections to the family's wider community once shared a revealing perspective with me. They said that as the family became famous, Mary was the one who began to develop friendships and interests in the outside world. She was becoming worldly. She was the one who was most candid in early seasons about her jealousy and struggles, who didn't always put a pretty filter on polygamy. In a system that demands unity and a positive public face to survive, Mary's honesty made her a threat. She wasn't keeping sweet. So, how do you neutralize a threat in a system like this? You isolate them. You discredit them. You ensure their version of events is seen as unreliable or malicious. And one of the most effective ways to do that is to have other, more compliant wives like Janelle, who Kody found easier to manage, corroborate a narrative that paints the scapegoat as the problem. When Janelle tattles on Jen's advice, it's not just about that moment. It's about reinforcing to Kody that she is a reliable source, and that Mary's circle, Jen, is dangerous. It's about positioning. This brings us to the heartbreaking core of Mary's experience. She has described feeling like an outsider for years. Now, we see why that might have been a deliberate, if subconscious, outcome. If she was friends with people like Jen, who encouraged self-sufficiency, and if she was emotionally drifting, she was a leak in the closed system. The response from the system's enforcers, both the husband and the wives vying for his favor, is to plug that leak. They plug it by monitoring her, reporting on her, and ultimately by casting her in a negative light to the one person whose opinion dictated her standing, Kody. It's also worth addressing the persistent, ugly rumors that have been used to justify Mary's ostracization, including claims about her behavior as a mother. From a source familiar with the cultural norms of their original community, I was told something that reframes this dramatically. The use of corporal punishment was, allegedly, a standard practice in that environment. The claim was, every single one of them spanked. This is a culture where corporal punishment is used for any of them to act like Mary did something different than what anyone else was doing is ridiculous. Now, let me be perfectly clear. I am not endorsing this practice. My personal stance is firmly against corporal punishment, but the relevance of this information is critical to the family dynamics. If this was, in fact, a widespread practice within the family's belief system at the time, then for specific individuals to later single out Mary and frame her as uniquely abusive serves a very clear purpose. It further legitimizes her exile. It turns a common, if controversial, practice within the group into a personal failing of the scapegoat. It's a classic tactic. Take a systemic behavior and pin all its guilt on one person to absolve the rest and justify their rejection of that person. This is the toxic ecosystem Mary has been navigating. Her crime wasn't necessarily one specific act, but a combination of being emotionally vulnerable, leading to the catfish, seeking external perspectives, and being less willing to hide the difficult truths of her life. In response, the system's immune response kicked in. The informants, Robyn with the catfish, Janelle with Jen's advice, provided Kody with the evidence he needed to justify emotionally abandoning Mary, which in turn solidified their own positions as the loyal, trustworthy wives. So, where does this leave us as we head into this finale? We're watching the final, painful unraveling of a system built on a foundation that could no longer hold. The tell-all is finally, albeit chaotically, putting the pieces on the table. Robyn's defensive denial of any betrayal, Janelle's admission to tattling, and the long-buried truth about how this family truly operated behind the scenes. Let's talk about Robyn's reaction. Her flat refusal to entertain the idea that Mary could distrust her as a masterclass in a specific kind of self-preservation. In her mind, her actions were loyal to the family structure as dictated by Kody. By immediately bringing Mary's vulnerability to Kody, she was upholding the chain of command. She was following the unwritten rule: all information flows to the top. Her anger now seems to stem from Mary's refusal to see that action as anything but betrayal. For Robyn, the system worked correctly. For Mary, the system was the betrayal. This clash of perspectives is the central drama. Robyn is the wife who most successfully internalized the rules of the game and, by doing so, won the position of favorite wife. But winning that game required participating in its mechanisms, one of which was acting as Kody's eyes and ears. To admit fault now would be to admit the game itself was flawed, and that would unravel the entire justification for her privileged position within the family hierarchy. She can't apologize because, in the logic of the system she thrived in, she didn't do anything wrong. She was being a good sister wife by the system's broken standards. Then we have Janelle. Her admission is fascinating because it's presented almost matter-of-factly. There's a sense of, well, yes, that's what we did. It hints at a quiet, painful resignation about the realities of their past dynamic. Janelle, the pragmatist, likely saw the reporting of information as a necessary, if unpleasant, part of navigating the complex politics of a plural marriage. It was a survival tactic. Her confession now may be the beginning of her own reckoning with how those tactics hurt others and sustained a toxic environment. It's a stark contrast to Robyn's defiant stance. It's an acknowledgement, however dry, of a painful truth. And what about Kody in all this? The clips show a man who was the direct beneficiary of this intelligence network. Wives reporting on each other gave him a sense of control and omniscience. It allowed him to play favorites, to punish perceived disloyalty, and to keep the wives in a state of competition not just for his affection, but for his trust. He didn't have to be present in every relationship. He had deputized informants. This is why the catfishing revelation from Robyn was so potent. It gave him the reason to fully withdraw from Mary, a reason delivered to him by the wife he trusted most, which made it unquestionable in his eyes. This finale, therefore, isn't just about rehashing old drama. It's a forensic examination of how the family fell apart. The polygamous structure didn't simply fade away. It was hollowed out from the inside by mistrust, surveillance, and the strategic use of secrets. The women weren't just drifting apart. They were often actively maneuvered into positions of isolation by one another in a bid for a higher spot on a crumbling ladder. This brings us back to the future, Season 21. What is left to film? The polygamy is over. The bonds of sisterhood have been revealed as frayed, often by design. The central patriarch has been exposed as a flawed manager of a broken system. The audience is now watching the aftermath, the slow and awkward process of individuals figuring out how to exist outside the structure that defined them for decades. It's the story of what happens after the revolution, when the rebels have to build their own lives from the rubble. For Janelle, Christine, and Mary, that means building true independence, financial, emotional, and social. For Robyn, it may mean confronting the reality that the system she mastered no longer exists, and her role within it is now obsolete. For Kody, it means facing a life without the constant flow of information and validation that the old structure provided. The great tragedy, and the compelling drama of this moment, is that we are witnessing the consequences of a system that taught these women to see each other not as unwavering allies, but as potential sources of intelligence to be used, or rivals to be reported on. The finale is forcing these mechanisms into the light. When Robyn says, "I've had Mary's back," and Mary physically recoils at the idea, we are seeing the catastrophic failure of that system's definitions of loyalty and support. They are speaking two different languages, born from two different experiences of the same broken family. So, what are we left with as viewers? We're left with a stark portrait of how easily family can become system, and how loyalty can be twisted into surveillance. The Brown family story has always been sold as a unique experiment in love and commitment. This finale is exposing the less glamorous, more human truth. It was also an experiment in power dynamics, and those dynamics created wounds that are still raw. Mary's journey, in particular, stands as a heartbreaking case study. She stayed the longest, hoping for a reconciliation that was never coming, in part because the information being fed to Kody about her, from the catfish reporting to the stories about friends like Jen, painted her as unworthy of it. She was trapped not just by her own hope, but by a narrative about her that other wives helped write. This tell-all, for all its chaotic editing, is achieving something remarkable. It's allowing the real story to bleed through the cracks of the produced narrative. We're not just hearing about arguments, we're hearing the architecture of the arguments. We're learning how a look, a private conversation, or a moment of loneliness could be harvested, turned into a report, and used to alter the course of relationships for years. As we watch these final confrontations, that's the key to understanding the heightened emotions. This isn't just about being angry over something that happened years ago. This is about Mary finally being in a room where the mechanism of her isolation is being acknowledged. It's about Robyn facing the consequences of playing by the old rules in a world that now sees those rules as cruel. It's about Janelle quietly admitting her part in a machine that caused pain. The family built for television is over. What's left is the painful, authentic, and necessary work of untangling a lifetime of complicated, often damaging knots. And for us, the audience, it's a compelling, if uncomfortable, lesson in how systems shape relationships and the high cost of using information as a weapon instead of a bridge. What do you think? After seeing these clips, do you believe Robyn's actions during the catfish saga came from a place of concern, or were they a strategic move to solidify her position with Kody? Does Janelle's admission change your view of her role in the family dynamics? And most importantly, can there ever be genuine healing between these women after so many years of functioning in a system built on tattling and competition? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If this deep dive into the family's power structures resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up. It truly helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss our analysis as we follow the story to its inevitable end. Thanks for watching, everyone.